The Detroit Economic Growth Corporation, also known as the DEGC, is tasked with helping businesses succeed in Detroit. The nonprofit organization works closely with the city and other partners to support existing businesses and attract new companies. In September, the DEGC welcomed a new president and CEO. I'm pleased to have him here as a guest on American Black Journal. Please welcome Roderick Miller. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so you're from New Orleans, another very troubled city with a lot of development challenges. Tell me what you see. I'm always very curious with people who come here from other places. What do you see here that reminds you of New Orleans in terms of the problems that we have, but also what do you see in terms of opportunity for us here?
So one of the things, that both cities are urban cities with large African-American populations, and unfortunately they share the same challenge in terms of poverty and economic disparity.
Right.
I mean, when you look at a city like Detroit, you're talking about a 27% unemployment rate, which is 3 times the national average. You're talking about 58% of kids living in poverty, a third of the adult population living in poverty. And you're talking about, we're starting to see the city turn the corner. However, those opportunities haven't necessarily been distributed throughout the entire community. And so I think, there's a huge opportunity to really focus on how do we build a sustainable economy that creates opportunities for everybody.
Yeah, so I'm glad you got to that right away. That is the central development question, I think, here in Detroit in a lot of people's minds right now is we've got all this activity going on in downtown and in midtown, and people are all universally excited about that. But I think there's a little head scratching about, well, what about all these other places? I mean, we got 140 square miles of Detroit, and a lot of it is still struggling, and the opportunity is the thing that people are missing. So what is it that we have to do to take what we're doing downtown and in midtown and make it matter to people who live in other parts?
So there are a few things that are critical. One is to have a clear direction. I've asked around and I've talked and I've seen the future city plan and other plans, but there's not a clear economic strategy for where we want to be as a city in 5 years,
That's
and
true.
7 years, and 10 years. That's one of the things I think is vitally important, that the DGC work with the city, with the community, with other partners to figure out.
To figure that stuff out?
To figure that out. So that's number one. Number two is that key to economic inclusion is economic participation. So how do you have economic participation? There's a couple of things. One is jobs.
Right.
So when we look at our top 10, top 20 largest employers, looking at what their long-term plans for employment are in the city and really aligning workforce development programs with those opportunities. When we look at our opportunity as a city to attract companies, aligning workforce development with that so people can move into those jobs. That's number two. Number three is, I would say, is small business. Small business is the backbone of Detroit's economy. We've got several programs at Detroit Economic Growth Corporation focused on helping small businesses grow, whether it's Any Ideas, which is, for businesses that have been around.
Right.
Or the D2D program, which figures out how to partner Detroit businesses with other Detroit businesses to do business. Or the Revolve program, which helps startup companies identify spaces. We've got to focus on growing small businesses and helping make sure that they're scalable and they employ our people.
Right. Your predecessor in the job was someone I talked to an awful lot, and he used to make the point to me all the time that a lot of people see the DEGC as a downtown, midtown institution, and that's where the big sort of headline-grabbing projects go on, but that most of the work, in fact, the DEGC does is out in those neighborhoods and doesn't get as much attention trying to build up that infrastructure that you're talking about.
That's very true. And one of the things is critical mass. I mean, so you've got critical mass that's happening downtown along the riverfront. You've got critical mass in Midtown. Now the challenge is how do we focus efforts? Because really focusing efforts on some targeted areas to make sure that there is an abundance of resources funneling to those areas to help the economic recovery is vitally important to people actually beginning to feel it on a much more real level. There are opportunities for economic advancement.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about community benefits agreements too. That's another issue that's been hotly debated locally. We've got this Red Wings arena project that's going on, and we do not have a community benefits agreement for that project, which I think has inspired a lot of people to say, well, hold on a second. We got to make sure this doesn't happen again. So you have city council saying, let's pass a law, which, that's what legislative bodies do, right? They pass laws. You don't think that's a great idea?
What I don't think is a great idea is to have a one-size-fits-all law. This law wouldn't just cover deals like the arena deal or deals like the marathon deal. This law would cover things like an affordable housing project that's $4 or $5 million.
Right, very small projects.
It would cover very small projects, and really, and we hadn't shown historically the capacity to enforce on these things here in the city. So I think we need to move something forward that's much more thoughtful and much more nuanced. That says, for projects of a certain size, it's important that they have community benefits agreements. But I believe that fundamentally, every project that receives some sort of public incentive should have a direct return on investment for the community.
Right.
What's that direct return on investment? That's things such as jobs for Detroiters. Yep. That's things such as improvements to local infrastructure. Those sorts of things. There are ways to get there that are much more nuanced and much more enforceable.
Right. You don't need a hammer to do this the right way. Maybe you
well,
use,
quite frankly, I think a hammer is appropriate. However, that's the wrong hammer.
Right.
Because why that? I mean that legally through development agreements, we can enforce job creation. We can enforce benefits for communities, and we've not necessarily done that through the tools that we already have historically.
Right. So is your? I mean, I know that you're talking with members of City Council. Do you feel like we'll get there to a place where we can all sort of agree on? What's interesting is that I don't think anybody disagrees that we need community benefits agreements and that we've got some high-profile projects that don't have them. It's a question of how to get there.
It's a question of how to get there, and I do think we will. One of the things that I'll say is I highly commend Council President Jones because she has taken this issue, even though we disagree on how to get there, she's taken this issue and said community benefits are vital and we've got to do better.
Right.
And we're on the same page. We actually agree 100% on the objectives.
Right.
We just disagree on
it's
how to get there.
It's a question of the methodology.
And I sincerely believe that there's an effort on her part, there's an effort on the part of the administration, there's an effort across the board to figure out how we get there in a way that makes sense.
Yeah. Of course, downtown, midtown, doing much better than they had before. I think we tend to overstate how much change there has been. When I go to other cities, I still see big gaps between Detroit and those places. What are the things we need to do going forward to make sure that momentum continues and make sure that we have as strong a core as we can?
So in addition to continuing to develop a strategic plan for the economy, in addition to that, in addition to workforce policy, I would also say that one of the things that we have to do better is tell our story. Right now, we let others tell our story. We let others tell the story of Detroit. We've got to tell the story of Detroit. As someone who's not from here, I was blown away by how incredible this city is. I love this city, and I've only been here 6 weeks.
Right.
And I think we can't let the national media define who we are. We know who we are, and we've got to tell that story and why there's a clear value proposition for businesses to move here and a clear value proposition for people to move here.
Yeah. In the past, DEGC has had control of some pretty prominent sites that have sat undeveloped for a long time. Tiger Stadium is one of them, which has led people to be really frustrated with the agency and say that it's sometimes an impediment to development. How do you address things like that?
Well, the DGC has to respond within the context of the greater economy. So if we look at, of course, post-2007, 2008, nationally we saw that there was a lack of investment going on. And of course, Michigan, unfortunately, has done worse than the rest of the national economy.
Absolutely.
So quite frankly, the DGC isn't able to spur investment in an investment environment on the national scene where there is an opportunity. However, the beauty of the DGC is that we've got a variety of tools, whether it's the ability to assemble land, whether it's the ability through our agencies to release bonds or those sorts of things, that we can encourage things to happen. And I'm excited about it. I think, moving forward, we will be much more aggressive on reaching out to investors around the country, around the opportunities that are here in Detroit. And I think one of the things that we should be doing is reaching out to African-American investors because we are an African-American city.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that people will talk about a lot here is who participates, and you've got to get. You'll be asked to answer those critics real soon, right?
Yeah, everybody has to participate. If we don't have an economy where everybody's participating, we fail because all we're going to do is exacerbate the gap between the have and the have-nots.
Right. Yeah. Which is we're already starting to see some blowback over that, but that gap between downtown and the neighborhoods is really starting to glare because downtown is really starting to come on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, welcome to Detroit. I'm sure you'll go home for Mardi Gras in
Thanks for having
February,
me.
but it's good to have you here. And I always say it's really important that we get people from other places with other experiences to come sort of bring their skills to bear on our problems here. So
I'm very excited. I think Detroit is, I don't think, I know Detroit is on its way up, and I'm very glad that the people of Detroit have been so welcoming of me, and I look forward to working with everybody.
yeah, great. Great to have you here.